Hello everyone, my name is Shweta and today we're going to discuss about the Qatar death row. 8 Indians have been sentenced to death on espionage charges by Qatar. This verdict has become an unprecedented event in India's diplomatic history, which highlights the importance of the issue to be discussed. So in this video, we'll discuss about how the timeline of events has been followed. Now we'll also discuss about the arrested people, about the charges that have been framed against them. We'll also discuss about overall functioning of Qatar's judicial system, how India has responded to this verdict, what options India has, and what seems to be India's best bid will also be discussed related to this case. For holistic understanding of this case, we'll also delve into understanding the India-Qatar relations, and we'll also look at the implications this particular case can have on this issue. So these are the points of discussion for today's video. We'll begin with looking at the geographical positioning of Qatar on the world map. It's a very small country in the Middle Eastern part of the world. It is bordered by United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. So it's a very small country present in the Persian Gulf. Qatar initially was a British colony, but after Britishers left, it remained to be a vassal state to the Saudi Arabia. But after a few years, Qatar emerged as an important and independent player in the West Asian politics. That is about Qatar, but how this case has evolved into a situation that we are facing presently, we'll look with the help of a timeline. So the issue started in August 2022. The 8 Indian ex-Navy personnel who have been sentenced to death today, they have been employees of a company called Al Dahra Global. They were arrested overnight on undisclosed charges and they were held in solitary confinement in Qatar jails. Later in mid-September 2022, the Indian embassy, it first learnt about this issue which was taking place with the Qatar. In October 2022, first time the consular access was granted with respect to these detainees. The consular access here means that the ambassadors, they were allowed to interact with the detainees, and the family members, they were also allowed to pay weekly visits and have telephonic conversations with the arrested individuals. After a few months, they started making bail pleas, but in March 2023, the last of the bail pleas, they were rejected and the charges, they were filed against all of the arrested people. Now, all of these proceedings, they were operating in a very opaque manner and not much information was revealed regarding them. But a major setback, it came in October 2023 when a preliminary court in Qatar, it sentenced the 8 Indian Navy personnel to death. Now, the death penalty which was given to them, it was seen as deeply shocking by India. Indian government, it assured that it will take up this verdict with the Qatar authorities. Pursuing to that, in November 2023, the second consular access, it was even granted to India. So this is how the situation has emerged into what we are seeing today. But to know more about this case, we'll look at other facets related to it. We'll begin with understanding that who are these people. The people, those who have been arrested, they have been identified as Captain Navteej Singh Gill, Captain Virendra Kumar Verma, Captain Saurav Vashisht, Commander Amit Nagpal, Commander Purnendu Tiwari, Commander Sugunankar Pakala, Commander Sanjeev Gupta and Sailor Ragesh. All of these, they have been decorated naval officers from India, particularly Commander Purnendu Tiwari. He has been honored with the Pravasi Samman Award in 2019 by our Honorable President for strengthening the Qatari Navy. So all of them, they have provided their contributions in enhancing India's image globally as well as nationally. But what were they doing in Qatar during that time can be an issue or can be a question that can occur to your mind. So to look at it, all of them, they were employees of this company, as I said, Dahra Global Technologies and Consultancy Services, also called as the Al Dahra Company. It started its operation in 2015. So it was a private firm which provided training related services to the Qatari Navy. See, Qatar has been bordered by water on many of its boundary parts, right? So due to that, Qatar accords highest importance to its Navy capabilities. And to enhance its capabilities, it was working in close collaboration with the Al Dahra Company. Now, Qatar was very impressed with the working of this company. Gradually, the number of employees, they were also increasing in this company. It was seen that later, rather 90% of all these individuals, they were from Indian Navy personnel. So, Qatar was also according highest importance to Indian naval officers. Highest position were given to most of them. And one of the arrested, Sugunakar particularly, he was director of the company at the time of this arrest. So everything was going on very well between Indian naval officers, between Qatar authorities and the Al Dahra Company as well. But what led to situations to take downturn? Now we'll look about the naval officers case that have been framed by Qatar. See, at the onset we have to understand that Qatar authorities, they have not provided any reason for their arrest. Formally, no reason nor allegation they have been provided by Qatar. But over sources, we have tried to look into this case even in a different manner. So in 2020, Qatar signed a MOU with the Italian shipbuilding company, which would provide submarines for Qatar with stealth capabilities. Now this technology, it requires great expertise, and for that the Al Dahra Company, it was hiring ex-naval officers from different countries who would be having good expertise. So the sources, they claim that most of the arrested people, that they were working on this project. Later, due to some reports, it was seen that the Navy officers, they faced allegations related to espionage on Israel's behalf. So they have been accused that related to this project, they were spying and helping Israel's capabilities. Two other Qatari nationals, they were also charged on the similar accounts. One was the CEO of the Al Dahra Company, but later he was released. But the future of Indian personnel, it's still relinquished in the jails in the Qatar. Apart from it, Qatar authorities, they have claimed that they have electronic evidences related to this case. News reports, they argue that some radio intercepts related to communication between the Indian officials and the Navy personnel working there has been at the hands of Qatar, but such speculation, it has been denied by many Indian officials. So this is how presently the Navy officers case has been framed in Qatar. We are seeing that very opaque manner of this case has been proceeded in Qatar, which brought us to the questioning of the overall functioning of Qatar's judicial system. So across the world, Qatar's judicial system is viewed not with very positive manner. In 1998, the Qatar had signed the UN Vienna Convention. According to this convention, if a foreign citizen has to be punished on the Qatar soil, the Qatar will have to inform the concerned nation. But the Oxford University's death penalty unit, it argues that Qatar has been failing on these agreements time and again. We'll look at the example of Anil Chaudhary. In 2017, Anil Chaudhary, a Nepali resident, Nepali citizen, he was sentenced to death in the Qatar. So when Nepali embassy was informed, it was just one day before the citizen was to be shot down, and before Nepali embassy could take any action, the sentence was meted out to him. So this is how Qatar has been functioning historically. Apart from it, there's another law in Qatar that you must have a lawyer from Qatar itself. So the Nepali citizen, he was sentenced to death, but he was not provided a lawyer that could speak his language. That is the kind of functioning of Qatar's judiciary. Now, after looking at it, we can see that there is also not much information about the allegation related to the Navy officer's case pertaining to India. But India, it cannot afford to delay its response looking at the history of Qatar? When the death verdict was given, one of the former diplomat, he even said that the sentence should not have been carried in Qatar because no one actually knows how the government, how the judicial system is functioning in Qatar. But now the situation is that the death verdict has been given. How the government has responded to it, we'll see. The Ministry of External Affairs, it stated that after the death verdict has been given, it expressed deep shock at this verdict. It argued that all the consular and legal assistance would be extended to this case, but due to the confidential nature of the proceedings, not much can be said about this case. So Indian government, it is also not provided with all the information related to this case, but it still extends all the legal and consular assistance to the detainees. After a few days, the External Affairs Minister, Mr. S. Jaishankar, he met with the families of the detainees and he assured that the government accords highest importance to this case. He even said that the government will coordinate with the families of the detainees in this regard. So that is how India has responded. But now, looking at the situation, what options does India has in resolution of this case? We'll look at. So India's options are very limited because see, the charges itself are not very clear. And when the charges are not clear, what would be the grounds on which we would be taking up this case, right? So the undisclosed charges first provide the hurdle. Then the speculation that have been made regarding the charges, they are also related to espionage. Now we have to understand, espionage, it hampers the sovereignty and security of an independent state, which makes the case even more sensitive. So now if we think upon getting international support, this issue becomes a major hurdle also. So in that situation, the legal challenge, the legal framework that India can follow with becomes the taking up this matter in judiciary of the Qatar. Qatar's judiciary, it also follows a hierarchical structure. Initially, there is the court of first instance, which has given the death penalty. Then there will be a court of appeal, and there would be a court of cassation also, where we would be given 60 days to appeal as well. Now, even if the appeal is rejected in the court of cassation, the highest court in Qatar, all can be in the hands of Qatar's emir. In the countries like Qatar, the kings, they have the power to remit the sentences of the people lodged in the jails. So the king, he can also overrule the decision of this court, but that would depend on the relevance he accords to the India-Qatar relations, right? So the legal resolution, it can also hit a roadblock. Other option for India is to employ diplomacy. India can operationalize a prisoner exchange deal that was signed between India and Qatar in 2015. When the Qatar emir, he visited India in 2015, an arrangement was made with respect to that Indian citizens and the Qatar nationals, they can be allowed to go into their native countries and serve the part of their sentence in their respective country only. But for that, the death sentence has to be commuted to the life imprisonment sentence, and which would still be a challenging situation for India. Apart from it, India's room to maneuver is also limited because of Qatar's strained relations with other West Asian powers. Saudi Arabia and UAE, for example, they have put a blockade earlier because Qatar was sponsoring terrorism. Then Israel can be an option for India, but it looks like it would not be willing to get involved when the sovereignty of nation is at the stake. So the options of international support, they also get limited. What looks like a best solution for India in current time, we'll look at. See, India's relations with Qatar, they have been very cordial. So India, this is the right time where it can call upon the warm relations between India and Qatar. Economically, we have strong relations with Qatar. In 2021, India was among the top 4 export destinations of Qatar and also among the top 3 import destinations as well. Apart from it, since 2008, a security pact has been signed where Indian Navy, it helps the Qatar Navy in training and other logistic support as well. So we see we have good relations with Qatar in military manners as well. So the statements have been made by experts regarding India's best bid that it will be a complicated and confidential negotiation, but Qatar does understand negotiation. In the case related to Palestine and Israel conflict and also the Taliban issue in Afghanistan, it was seen that Qatar is open to negotiation and understands negotiations very well. Qatar is also willing to have good relations with India, looking at the significance of the relations. So we can take up negotiation with Qatar on a higher scale. Apart from it, New Delhi, it has to make concessions to Qatar and have to assure Qatar that even if the espionage charges are true, it should not be related with the company in which Indian personnel are working. And even if the sentence of death penalty, it could be commuted to life imprisonment, it would not hamper Qatar's sovereignty to any extent. So such assurance India owes to Qatar in this sensitive manner. Apart from it, another statement has been made that Qatar is a state and not a militant organization. So it has been seen time and again that in such situations, some kind of breakthrough, it can be achieved with the help of negotiation. So India can show its negotiation prowess in such matter and it can actually reap benefits to a great extent. So this is how India's good relations with Qatar can help India resolve this issue. Now looking at India-Qatar relations, we'll look at other dynamics of the relations as well. If we look at the map, India is a very big country geographically, militarily, economically as well when compared to Qatar, right? But still both of these are independent and important players in their own respective geographies, and with that significance we'll look at their relations. So the diplomatic relations, they have been very favorable between both the countries. When Prime Minister Modi, he visited Qatar in 2016, the Prime Minister of Qatar, he himself welcomed Prime Minister Modi at the airport, and he even said that Qatar is second home of India. So such good relations have been established, and recently in 2022, both the nations, they have celebrated the golden jubilee of their diplomatic relations. Apart from it, the military relations, a defense security arrangement, it was signed in 2008 and it was hailed as a landmark achievement by both the countries. It permitted mutual defense training and facilitated mutual visits from both the countries. Later, the India-Qatar Joint Committee on Defense Cooperation was also started, and the Zair al-Bahar, it's a naval exercise which has been taking place between India and Qatar regularly. Apart from it, economically, we saw that India and Qatar, they have good trade relations, annually valued of $15 billion trade. It has been taken up in business. So economically, investment friendly policies, they have also are taken up by both the nations. And then the important facet related to this relation is diaspora. Indian expatriates, they are the largest number in Qatar and they form almost 25% of the Qatar population. So that is the amount of Indian individuals that are there in Qatar. So they form around 1/4 of the whole Qatar population. This is the significance, the relations which India and Qatar has. But we see that all the times they have been good relations. This event, it can be seen as a first major crisis in this relationship. But it will have implications to a great extent, which brings us to discussion on implications of this case. So the verdict, it can potentially strain the relations because the Indian migrants, they help to a great extent in fostering the economic and the political ties between both these nations. Now, when the lives of over 7 lakh people are viewed under this conflict or this particular case, it puts a great pressure on India to save the lives of all the detainees, right? Apart from it, the remittances that India receives from the people from Qatar, it's greatly contributing to the economic development of India. So because of that, India accords greater importance to this case. Apart from it, Qatar is a significant supplier of liquefied natural gas to India. It forms up a substantial portion of all the LNG imports that India has. So if we strain relations with Qatar, the India's energy security, it would also become hampered. Apart from it, the relevance of indulging in similar defense cooperation agreements with the other countries would also become in question, right? If the close defense cooperation, they cannot be brought to closer diplomatic relations, then their relevance can become a question. And apart from it, it can be a bigger blot, as the another ex-Indian naval commander, Kulbhushan Jadhav, he is still in Pakistani jails and facing death sentence on similar charges. So the Qatar case can also be portrayed as involvement of Indian individuals in espionage activities. This would dent the hard-working and determined image of Indian diaspora across the world, and it may provide a hesitancy to other nations of employing Indians into sensitive manner. So with this, we can see that the case can have wider implications as it can be realized today. But looking at the significant, we have to come at a solution at a very recent time. So for that, it is essential for India first to remain committed to the well-being and the legal rights of its citizens. And apart from it, India should also try to allay the concerns that Qatar is having. So India should complexicate or navigate the complexities of this international diplomacy in a great manner. Apart from it, the successful resolution of this issue, it should employ a combination of diplomatic efforts, of legal efforts, and of international cooperation. So in this issue, we discussed initially about how the events have unfolded into present day verdict of death sentence to 8 Indian Navy personnel. Apart from it, we looked at more details related to the people arrested, to the cases, the charges that have been framed against them, right? We also looked at the Qatar's judicial system and what options India has. We looked at what seems to be the best bid of India and how India's relations can be impacted from this case. So for successful resolution, we also looked at the way forward. What more can go into this issue? It remains to be seen. And that's all for today. Thank you.